name is Sean, and today we're just going to go over the Rhinestone 101. It's just going to be a basic introduction to some of the Rhinestone features, just to get a feel for everyone's knowledge. Has everyone done rhinestones before? Is anyone pretty new? Okay, so we got a little of both. So yeah, this is going to be more of a basic introduction, kind of figuring out when to use what type of fill and so on like that. So today we're going to be working out of the Design Wizard 4.15. So if you have the 4.0, the newest version should be the 4.15. If you're in a previous version, the 3, the 2, most of these rhinestone features are gonna act and be the same buttons. There hasn't been too much that's changed over the rhinestone features. So if you're using a previous version, you should still be able to follow along pretty well with what we're gonna cover today. So once we open our Design Wizard, you'll see that it has a Place and Fill tab. That's where we're gonna do most of our rhinestone setting up and rhinestone commands. Alright, so the first thing we'll cover is kind of just all the buttons and the layout. So at the top, you'll have this little drop down here. So it should start as default, or it will just be a blank box where it won't really say anything. So this is a drop down that has a lot of preset rhinestone features for you. They're pretty much labeled like they are, so you'll see a faded heart 10 island. So I can click this drop down right here. It will generate all my settings, and I can hit island fill, or if I create a design, let me grab a heart because it wants us to do a heart shape. If I hit island fill, it will automatically set up my heart for a 10-row scatter design. So there are a lot of preset features in here, so you can kind of go through those and see how these work as well. But for the most part, we'll probably be using the default and controlling the rhinestones ourselves, or setting up the islands, the contour, and everything ourselves. Alright, so underneath the default, you'll see that we have an inside and outside button. So this is pretty much just telling us how we want to fill our object. So inside would obviously be to the inside of the design, and if we selected the outside, we put the rhinestones outside of our design. So if we had this basic design and we just wanted a rhinestone outline, that's when we're going to use more of the outside fill features. So with this rectangular box, if I just wanted one island to the outside, or one row of stones to the outside, I would just select outside fill. We're going to check add stones because we want to make sure we're adding the stones. Now, islands is just the number of rows of stones. So when it says islands, just think of that's going to be one row of stones. So I'm going to hit 1. Our space isn't going to change too much, and our fill line spacing isn't going to change much either. So these two are pretty much going to be set at 0.02 and 0.14. Now, these settings are set up for, if we look up top here, we have our SS10 stone selected. So these settings we have are pretty much set up for the SS10. It's the most common stone we use and most people use, so we set up our system so when you first use it, it's more generated towards the SS10 stones. If you select a different stone size, so if I go to the 6s, our fill line spacing might be a little bit off. So it's going to be hard to know exactly what the fill line spacing is and how to match it to the SS6. So instead, all you have to do is hit this auto, and then it will know that we're going to use the SS6 settings, and it will automatically generate your fill line and your contour to match it. So the last thing we have, now I'm going to do 2 examples. Once we have this all filled out, all we have to do is I'm going to select a different stone color. I'm going to hit Island Fill. So let me make these a little bit smaller, each one, so we can see it a little bit easier. Alright, so I'm going to select my Island Fill. I'm going to fill this all out, and then I'm just going to hit Island Fill. So you'll see the stones get generated right outside our original square. Now when I zoom in, you can see that because I set it at auto, it's going to automatically go right off our design. So it's not going to overlap our vinyl or our object that's in the middle. So if we have a text or anything like that, if we set this to auto, it will automatically start right outside our design. Now, I'd made 2 copies because on this side here, you can see that this corner doesn't line up that well. So, because this design and down here as well, you can see that they just don't line up very nicely. These 2 corners on the left are perfect. Both of them on the right are overlapping. Right. So does anyone know what button I can click to fix that? All right, yes. So right here is our corner detect. So this is just a check mark. So when that button is checked, it's going to recognize these corners. And when I hit Island Fill now, you can see that each corner is perfect. So when we're working with a design that's a square, more blocky, this type of, when we hit the corner detect, it's going to make our design a lot cleaner and give us less work to edit at the end. So does anyone have any questions about the corner detect and how that works? Alrighty. So next, once we have our design like here, we have to clear our path. So right now you can see that each one of these stones is connected on a path. Now, the first one we did to the left, I didn't add a corner detect. So when I pull this rhinestone path away, you can see that it's one complete path. However, the one on the right, when I pull these away, each time it hits a corner, it breaks its path. So there's actually 4 different paths on this design. Now, it makes our design look a lot better, but what it also does is, because there's stones, each one breaks at the corner to make it a perfect corner, the cornerstones are going to overlap every time. So you can see that I have a stone here already, and when I put this back, they'll have 2 stones overlapping. So I'm going to go ahead and delete our left side, and now we can focus on our right. So once we have this, we need to make sure that we clear these stones so there's no overlapping stones left. Right? So to do that, the first thing we're going to do is highlight our design and hit Clear Pass. Now by hitting Clear Pass, it's going to get rid of those lines, and now I can individually move each stone as I want. Before that, each one will be on the path, so if I grab one stone, it will move the entire path. So again, we're going to highlight, hit Clear Pass, and now we can move these stones around freely. Now we still have the issue of the overlapping stones. So since this one's a pretty simple design, it has 4 corners, I know that on each corner it's going to have an overlapping stone. So it's just going to be in the corners that we have these overlapping stones. So what we need to do is learn the tools to help see these and to get rid of them with just a click of a button. So does anyone know how to mark any overlapping stones? All right, so at the bottom of our wizard, and this is going to be on every page. It doesn't matter what tab I go to. The bottom does not change. So the three at the bottom here, we have a marked top, a marked bottom, and a merge overlapping stones. So these three buttons will help us clear up our design when we have overlapping stones. So in this case, there's really not too many. Again, it's just a simple square or rectangle, so it's not going to be too many trouble areas with this design. But we can still use these features to help show our overlapping, and then we'll merge it. So I'll make 3 copies so we can see how each design works. So the first one, I'll just highlight the entire design, and I'm going to hit mark top overlapping stones red. So you can see each corner has a red stone now. So those are going to show you all the areas that have overlapping stones. So if a stone is barely touching another stone and I hit this mark top, it will mark the stone red. So it doesn't have to be a perfect overlap like these ones here. If they're touching at all, it will be marked red. So with these type of designs, I usually like to hit the mark top, because when if I do the same thing, highlight my design and hit the mark bottom, it marks it red, but because it's marking the bottom stone red, you won't necessarily see that right away. Now when we perform this button, you can see that I have these black boxes around my entire design. So that's showing me that I have something selected. So when I click the button and I still have this object selected, if I just pull it down, you'll see that it has the 4 stones that I just marked selected. So that I can just delete those out, and now my stones are no longer overlapping. And you can do that here too. When I mark the top ones, it will just pull out those 4 red ones. And once I move those, hit delete, I no longer have any overlapping stones in my design. Now, the last tool we have is a merge overlap. So in this case, the merge overlap is going to work perfect. All I have to do is highlight, hit merge overlap, and it's not going to mark anything red. All it does is manually merge those 2 stones that were overlapping. So it's just going to take that top one and merge it into the bottom one. So on a design like this, that's exactly what we want. Just a merge overlap. We just click one button and we no longer have any overlapping stones. Now, as we get into more complex designs, you might start running into issues where the stones, or maybe like this, and instead of merging those 2 stones or separating them, it's going to merge them to the middle. So it's going to adjust the way our design looks. So if I had a straight line here and I had a design like this, well, when I merge 2 stones, when they're in a line like this, it's going to leave a lot of gaps around your design. So it's not always the perfect tool, but in this case, when it's a direct overlap, the merge works very well. But again, if you're working with a line or a row of stones, sometimes the merge overlap will combine the 2 and add a lot of spacing between the other stones. All right, so does anyone have any questions, or do I need to repeat any part of the overlaps or the merge? Alrighty, so we'll keep going. Alright, so the next one, if I still stick with our square here, our next thing is we have the inside fill. So if I try to fill an entire object, and I'm actually going to switch to the circle for this one. I'm just going to draw a circle. Now, if I want an entire object filled, to the inside, we can't just guess the number of islands. So in this case, if we put 4 islands to the inside, you'll see that it doesn't actually fill the entire circle. And you don't want to sit here guessing, well, if that was 4, let's try 10. We're still getting a little bit closer, so we'll try 15. And that looks pretty good. So 15 was the right number, but instead of having to do that every time we want to fill an object, instead all we're going to do is leave the number at 0. And by putting the islands at 0, only when it's to the inside, it will tell the wizard that we want this object filled until it can't be filled anymore. So I'll select my circle, I'll put 0, add stone 0. I don't need a corner detect because this is a perfect circle. There aren't corners in a circle. So I'm just going to hit island fill. And you'll see that fill up perfectly. I can highlight, clear pass. And it kept my original circle, but when I move that, you can see it's a perfect rhinestone fill. So does anyone have any questions on that procedure as well? Yeah, so with the inside, when you're doing it inside, it doesn't matter how large an object is. As long as it's at 0, it will fill that object until it can't fill it anymore. So if I take this same circle that I just created and I make it a little bit bigger and I hit island fill again, I don't have to change any of my settings because I just want that completely filled. Right? And this little circle here, I can manually move that to place it in the center. Now, since we have these islands right here, you can see that all these stones are connected by those blue lines. We call that a path. So when these stones are on a path, if I select one stone, you can see how it selects that entire group of stones. So once I have them on a path, I can easily add or minus a stone by clicking up or down on my arrows right here. So if I go down, you can see how it starts getting rid of some of these stones. So if your stone placement is too tight, once you get to this step, we can click on each path and get rid of a few stones or add a few stones if we need to, either way. But once they're on that path, all we have to do is select the path, hit up or down, and it will manually add stones for us. Now once we highlight and hit clear pass, we delete that out. Once we do that and these circles are individual circles, they're now no longer on a path, we can't just simply hit up and down on our arrows because it will start adding stones around that circle we just selected. So it's not going to give us what we want. So to able to use these up and downs, they have to be on those paths. Now, I left this gap on purpose because I want to show you another feature with the rhinestone. So if we don't have a path, if we deleted or cleared our paths, we can still add a path to edit our stones. So I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to start clicking on this row of stones. So I don't need to go around the whole thing. I just want to get a good group. So our gap is right here, obviously, and I want to close this gap, but I also want the spacing to be the same through all these stones. So once again, I'm going to just hold shift and select all these stones. So I'm going 5 this way, and I'll just go 5 or 6 this way too, just so I get a good group of stones. So it doesn't have to go around the whole path or whole row of stones or whole circle or anything like that. We just need a nice group of stones just like here. So once I have those selected, right here on our design wizard is our respace stones to make spacing equal. So all I have to hit is this respace button, And you can see it will add a line or a path for me now, and all the stones through there are perfectly spaced out. Now, because we took one out of there before, the spacing over here is a little bit less than the spacing that we just drew on this path. So to change that, let me select my path again. So I'm going to come here. Again, it's Shift, select all my stones, respace. Once I hit that respace and I have all these selected on a path, now I can hit up on my arrow and add or minus stones to make that spacing equal throughout the design. And then once I'm done, I can select that line and just delete it out. All right, so does anyone have any questions on the respacing tool or the clear paths? Alrighty, we'll keep on moving. So once we kind of get the islands down and filling those objects, we can start actually using it with our design. So let's take a basic text and I'll just write out TRW, and we'll kind of start using these features to create designs. So with this feature, we'll go ahead and do a college black font and we'll add some rhinestones to our design. So with this font here, let's just pretend I just want an outline of stones around my entire design. Now, first of all, you can see that there's a little bit more space between the W and the R than the T and the R. So a row of stones might not necessarily fit through here, but they'll fit through here okay. So if you're okay with that, we can leave it as is. If not, we can even go a step further, go to our Edit tab. Here's our text spacing, and I can either bring that text spacing in or move it out. So then it will not only fit between the W and the R, but it will also fit in the T. So depending on what style you like, I can click the TS, and then I can actually manually move this W too, so it's closer that way. So whatever you think looks better, we can edit our text beforehand. So with this design here, let's just say we want a row of stones to the outside. So first thing we'll do, we'll click outside. We'll make sure our add stones is checked. And we'll do one island because we just want one row to the outside. Now again, our settings right here are SS10. So I just want to make sure I want to use SS10s in my design. Good. From there, I can set this to auto, and auto, because once it's set automatically, it will automatically set right outside our design. If we don't have the auto set, and let's say I do a contour 0.02, I'll check corner detect because you can see that we have a lot of corners in this design, and island fill. Because my contour spacing was so small at 0.02, the stones are actually overlapping, or the text is actually overlapping the stones. So we don't want that, because when we go to press that, the stones might get more stuck to the vinyl and they won't have a good hold and they could easily fall off. So when we set our contour, if we're using SS10s, usually around 0.08, 0.09 is a good mark for our contour spacing. So I'm just going to change that to 0.08, hit island fill, and now you can see that all the stones are off the vinyl. So when I hit island fill, it throws this nice island around my design. Now it's not going to be perfect. In some of the tight areas, you'll definitely need some editing, but this is where we can use these tools down here to quickly edit our design. Right? So once I add my stones, I'm going to go ahead and highlight, hit clear pass. And now I just want to see where my stones are overlapping. So what I'm going to do is just grab one stone, select all the same size, and that's going to grab all my stones for me. And I'm going to mark all the top overlapping stones. All right. So you have a couple options once you get to this step. Now, some people just like to, once they mark the tops, they just like to drag down and delete. And that does clean up your design a lot. You can see all the overlapping stones is gone. But what that does is leaves a lot of gaps in some areas. So you can see the spacing here is off. A little down here, all through here. So what I like to do instead is use those as a guide to see where I need to fix my design up. So in an area like this, these stones are, overlapping midway. So I can just highlight this row of stones, hit merge, and that will clean up that line for me. And then I can just, once I'm done with that, then it's a little less editing. I can just kind of pull those down. And now I have a clean line through here. Now at the top, because I merged that, the spacing's a little bit off. See how there's a gap here and on this side of the stone? Can everyone see that? So we need to fix that as well. So if I just highlight this little row of stones, again, I don't need to go through the entire row. If I just select a handful of the stones, hit my respace, go through it individually. Respace. You can see all that perfectly respaces. If I need to add a stone, I still can, and it looks great. So I'll go ahead and get rid of that. And through here, all these are pretty jumbled up, so I'm just going to fix that up like that. Go ahead and I can move this one down. That one's straight overlapping, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that. Now here, I have a row of stones that's pretty straight, but there's a lot of gaps in between here. So again, I can just select this row, hit my respacing, and then just add a couple stones. And now the spacing looks nice and clean, and I don't have to go back and change it anymore. So same with this row. Once I get done with it, because it's not going to line up perfectly, I'm going to move that one up and just go down this row, respace, and I'm done with that section. So you can see how clean this is already looking, and this way you don't have to really spend too much time cleaning it up. So here and here, those are just overlapping stones. Now this area, it's going to be hard to fit an extra stone in there. So we can manually bring our line out, or we can just have it kind of something like that and just go from there. So we'll leave it pretty much like that. Fix our side here. I'll bring that to the corner, this one up a little, and then I can respace my line down here. And you can highlight an area and hit respace. And if you just grab that group of stones, it should work the same way. And then I can manually move that out. So does anyone have any questions while I'm going through this? If you guys need to see anything again, or if I'm going too fast or anything, let me know and I can slow down or I can repeat anything needed. So again, on this side, just going to go ahead and clean it up again. If you really look at it, these two stones that are marked red right here, I'm going to turn them green. They're nicely in line with this bottom one here, so I don't want to delete those ones. I'm going to delete all these other ones around it. This one here, I'm just going to slide over. And now I can just select all these in a row again, hit my respacing, and now all that's fixed for me. So the red or the R looks pretty good. We can maybe fix just a few little things here, just kind of like last one. We have to kind of decide what look we prefer. Now, if I want to, I can kind of skip around these corners because I know that they're all going to be, these ones that are marked red are overlapping. So I can just go through those ones and just delete them real quick. Or if I want, I can just ignore them. And when I'm done editing my whole design, I can go through and merge everything. And that will make sure that it's all perfectly, that there's no overlapping stones as well. So even when I clean this whole design up, at the end I tend to just highlight the entire design, merge it, and that makes sure I didn't leave any stones out. So this part here, pretty much the same process that we've been doing. Now here, I can just move this out a little bit, delete that one, and then I have this line here. So everything, even though it's a straight edge, some of them might not always be perfect, but it's gonna work a lot better this way. So again, here, I'm not even gonna bother with these ones because they're perfectly overlapping. I'll just hit it with the merge when I'm done, and that will fix that for me. So I'll go ahead and set these ones up just like that. And down here, we'll just merge those two together, and that will be a perfect little area right there. Here I can just move these apart and clean this bottom area up just a little bit. Like that. Same thing here. We're just merging it. So a lot of it is once we add these outlines in Rhinestones, we're just going to go through and use these bottom tools to fix a lot of this up. So I'm just going to manually move these over just a little bit. Have that set that way. Again, these ones at the corner I'm okay with because now that everything's edited, I can just run through here. Let me get rid of this little line. Just going to grab that, merge my overlapping, and now that fixes all those. And then I can change it all to green afterwards. And now my stones are all the same color again. All right, so does anyone have any questions about what we've covered so far? Does anyone need to see anything again? Alrighty, we'll keep on moving. So that's an outside fill. So pretty easy. We just edited it in a few minutes and it looks really good now. I can pull my text away and you can see the nice rhinestone outline. Now, if we want to fill this design with stones, we have a few options of how to do that as well. Now, the easiest one for our blocky font. Now, remember, a hatch fill, when we use a hatch fill right here, this generates a perfect, for any kind of rectangle or square shape, it's going to fill that perfectly for us. So, if you see a font that's more of a block style or doesn't have a lot of curves to it, we can sometimes get away with a hatch fill instead of an island fill to create our design. So I picked this font on purpose because let's go ahead and I'm selecting my font, hitting hatch fill, and you can see that it almost perfectly fills this font without us doing almost any work. So there's a couple areas here that I could go down longer, so that's no problem. I can grab this last row of stones and manually move those down myself, and it adds another row to my T. So just like that, in one button, I can clear my stones. I'll merge any overlapping stones. And you can see that it's almost a perfect fill without us doing almost any work. Now, with the same type of fill, if I wanted it inside, I'd put 0 islands because I want it to fill all the way up. So I'm going to leave it at 0. My contour, I can hit at auto. If I don't mind it starting right on the line, I can even make this 0. So once I have all my items filled out, I'll hit island fill. And you can see that it's not the perfect fill. Now, I'd rather edit this top one than have to start worrying about this bottom one here. So the different fills will give you different results and make it a lot easier to start out with. So if I have a font, let's go ahead and choose one that's a little bit more script or curves. So let's go ahead, maybe try this St. Peter one. Let's go. Cooper. So this one right here isn't really blocky. It's got a lot of curves to it, not a lot of corners. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and hit island fill. And let me clear my path so we can see it a little bit better. But now we have this design where most of it looks pretty good. There's a couple areas we will have to edit, but you can see that because it's nice and curved, it looks a lot better. I'll just have to manually go in and edit those few steps. Now if I did the same font and I used a hatch fill, it will look okay, but when you get to the bottom areas where it starts curving, it doesn't show those curves well and it comes out a lot more blocky than it does curves with the way the actual text curves. So the hatch fill is great. It'll do a nice fill and quick, but you can see the spacing is very bad around the curves. So you're going to get that really blocky look even when you're not trying to. Right. So does anyone have any questions about when to use the island and when to use the hatch fill? Does everyone see the difference? All right. So the last two we have the path and the offset fill. So real quick, the path is really easy. All you can do is select any design, hit path fill, and you'll see that it automatically just adds a path right around your design. So if I move that away or hit clear pass, you can see it just does a nice outline of our text, really nice and clean. Maybe a couple overlapping stones, no problem, because we have our tools to fix that. So I'm just going to grab one of those stones out, just shift and click a row of stones, hit my respacing, and then it'll automatically fix that area for me. So that's what the path fill is going to do for us. So it's a really easy button. It's not going to give you, it won't allow you to select like 2 paths or 4 paths or anything like that. You'll have to use the island fill. But if you just want a straight outline of the text or style that you're using, you can easily just hit path fill, and it will just add the path just around your design. So again, an area like this, I can just highlight, respace, and it'll just fix all those stones for us. Now, the last fill we have is our offset fill. So the offset fill is great for like a curved shape, or just kind of a weird shape in general, a curvy line, a wavy line, something like that. So with this C, or with the circle, I'm going to just cut it so it just has this open side right here. Now, the offset fill, you'll still have to use the inside and outside, even though this is an open object, so there's not technically an inside and outside. It works as a fill either to the left or the right. So the inside will fill this way or to the right, and the outside will go away from us. So let's just do 3 rows. Our contour spacing will just do 0.01, and I'll hit offset fill. So because I clicked inside, it went to the right of our original design. But you can see, because it's an offset, how nice all these lines match up. So let's go ahead and grab that original line, and I'm going to make a couple examples. So with this one, we'll do the same thing. But this time we're going to hit island fill. So I'm going to do island to the outside. Now, it looks nice, but it actually puts a row of stones on both sides and this messed up one through the middle of our original line. And same with this one. If I do inside, it won't let you do it inside when we hit island, because it will think you're trying to do it to the inside of this really skinny line, which is impossible. So it'll give you an error like this. So if you see something like that, know that you're probably just trying to do something that's not capable, or just a wrong command. So instead, we'll use the offset. I'll do it, and this time we're going to do it to the outside. And again, you'll see our original line, and this time it went to the left side. So let me go ahead and delete this, and I'll bring my... So this was our first example here. That's our original line, and it went to the right side of our original line, to the inside. Now when I do the offset to the outside, it goes to the left of our original line. So depending on how you want that design to look, you can differentiate from inside and outside, hit offset, and so this one will make it a little bit smaller because it's going to the inside, and this one's going to the outside of that line, which makes it a little bit bigger. But the offset's perfect because it keeps all those straight in line, rather than if you did an island fill, it just doesn't, these lines don't line up that well, and they just don't look that good. So let's say we had a line or a wavy line like this. It's going to work the same way. If I do an island fill, that's what we get. You know, it doesn't look awful. It'll be easy to edit. But even with that line there, this one doesn't look too bad. But even our middle line is still doubled, and it just doesn't, it's going to be more work. So if I do the same setting and hit offset, you can see that they're perfectly in line throughout the entire design. There's no editing involved, and it just looks a lot better this way. So each one of these have their own purpose. Again, just to go over it again, the path fill is there just to create a path on your design that you have selected. So if you just want an outline of your text, something like this, path fill. If we're filling blockier objects like we have up here, we'll use the hatch fill. When we're filling if we're filling something or just putting an island to the outside, we'll use the island fill, and that's going to give us a design. Actually, we don't have any left. Something like here. This is an island fill. Alright, and the last one we have is an offset. For usually if it's not like a closed object, the offset is where you'll use that the most. And again, that's going to be an inside will be to the right, and an outside fill will be to the left. Alright, so do you guys have any questions about today's webinar? Can I show you anything again? All right. Well, it looks like there's no questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you guys for attending. We have another webinar scheduled Friday going over the basics or creating base designs for live templates. So that'll be Friday at 1:30, so you guys should definitely check that out as well. If you guys are interested, we do have our in-house training next week from the 28th through the 30th, that Wednesday through Friday. So the early bird schedule or the early bird's done, but you can still sign up and join us in our in-house training for 3 days. Right? But again, this was Sean, the Rhinestone World. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.